Welcome back to Pour Temecula. Today, Shannon is joined by Paige Comrie, certified wine expert and creator of Wine with Paige, and John Galfano of 40 Over Fashion. Paige shares how she brings wine to life through storytelling and photography, while John offers style tips and insights from his journey into men's fashion. Later, Rick and Shannon welcome Danza del Sol wine educator Heather Rankin for a conversation on hospitality and a surprise blind tasting. Cheers.
Hello, everybody. Some people say that Temecula is Southern California's Napa Valley, and while there may be some similarities, we think the two are very different. We're going to dive in and explore the differences, as well as talk fashion and wine tasting etiquette with John Galfano and Paige Comrie. But first, Rick, what have you been drinking?
One of the interesting things about doing this podcast is I've been more inspired to go outside my range of wines and outside my kind of like beer categories that I have and try new things. Just yesterday, for the first time, I tried a sparkling sake, and it was really interesting. I didn't even know there was sparkling sake until just recently, as yesterday.
I didn't know that either.
And I know nothing about sake, really. It was really interesting. I did a little bit of Googling before I tried this, so I had some expectations. If you've ever had Moscato d'Asti, and I know you've had Moscato d'Asti because we, as WSET people, have to try Moscato d'Asti, yep. And it was very similar to that. But without, it had some like candied apple and some almost like we talk about pear drop a lot in wine as a flavor that you can get. It's a byproduct of when you ferment really cold, you get these candied, gummy type aromas and flavors. And that was definitely in this sparkling sake. So that was really fascinating. It even had like a bubble gum type thing along with some prickly pear. It was force carbonated, so it was still really floral. It was just different. That's cool. I like to try different things. I like to be adventurous that way. So that's what I've been drinking lately. Shannon, you had a chance to sit down with John and Paige. Would you mind giving our listeners kind of an overview of who they are before we start playing your interview with them?
Of course. Paige is the digital storyteller behind Wine with Paige, a brand created to share the stories of the incredible people and bottles of wine who inspire adventure, take risks, and make the world a more beautiful place. Through photography, wine, and storytelling, she hopes that Wine with Paige inspires you to find your own magic in life, one glass of wine at a time. John is better known as 40 Over Fashion. His story starts as a race car driver in Seattle and then started blogging about fashion and lifestyle specifically aimed at men over 40. John shares inspiring tips, fashion trends, and even dating advice on his YouTube channel.
Okay, great. Well, we won't keep you waiting. We'll zoom right into John and Paige's interview with Shannon. Cheers.
I'm here with John and Paige to talk about fashion, wine, and something quite a few of our listeners have asked for, which is wine tasting etiquette. So before we dive into it, something we like to do here on the podcast is share what we've been drinking lately. It can be anything. For example, I was with Rick yesterday. We were recording a podcast episode at a local place called Corbeau Wine and Tea House. And we actually did a wine and tea pairing, which I've never done before. I don't think it's something they often do, pairing the two together, but it was really fun.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. That's really unique.
Yeah.
Did you find any cool new favorites?
I did. They had a Sauvignon Blanc that they make, and they paired it with a green tea, which is not a typical green tea. When I tasted it, it was very like fruity and delicious, but it was a lot of fun.
Yum.
Interesting. That's a cool spot. That's kind of a hidden gem.
It is. Yeah. So Paige, what have you been drinking lately?
Well, I actually just came from an event at Keller Estate, which is over in the Petaluma Gap in Sonoma. And so it's a Mexican-American family-owned winery. And so they served us different salsas and like kind of like this Mexican style food with their wines, which was really unique because, again, something you don't really think typically pairs is alcohol, wine with spicy food, but there were some really fun pairings in there.
That's cool.
Very
What
cool.
about you, John?
Interestingly enough, rosé bubbles.
It's that time, isn't it?
It's so refreshing. And yesterday we were out, we did a whole birthday thing at one of the wineries here in town. And it was kind of a warm afternoon, and I had a glass of red, and my mouth was just so dry. I was like, I need something with bubbles, something clean and crisp and bright and refreshing. So I went straight to the rosé, and I was in that like the rest of the night.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this in a little bit, but Paige does dress like your wine. And so today when I was picking my shirt, I was like, I want something like rosé.
Perfect. Yeah.
I've seen that on your Instagram. That's such a cool little thing. I've never seen anyone do that before. It's so rad.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I've been in the wine industry for a few years now, and so I feel like I always want something different, and that was a weird little combination of two of my favorite things, fashion and wine. So
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, I love it. On that note, why don't you guys tell everybody who you are, what you do, where you're from? And Paige, we can start with you and talk about your wine and photography.
Sure. So I'm Paige of Wine with Paige. I'm based in Napa, California. I call myself a digital storyteller because I really love bottles of wine and wineries that have great stories behind them. I think that's what really is interesting about them at the end of the day. Like, yeah, I mean, you want a good Chardonnay, but like you want to also know who made it. And so I use social media, Instagram, and my website, my blog, winewithpage.com, to share those stories with wine lovers and introduce new people to great wineries who need their stories told.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
And have you been to Temecula before?
Just once,
Okay.
I think 2 years ago, and it was a lot of fun.
Okay. It is a fun region. John, go ahead and let everybody know a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. My name's John, and I run all things 40 over fashion. So there's the YouTube channel, the Instagram, all the things. Website, not so much. I've sort of let the website kind of go. It just was too busy. But yeah, I guess we're going back several years. I'm interested to talk to Paige more about photography. I used to run a commercial photo studio in Seattle back in the day. We're going back. But before that, I raced cars. I was a car racer for about 10 years. And after I retired from all of that, I looked in the mirror and I was puffy, like I'd gained too much weight. Just, and I didn't like what I saw. So I lost 40 pounds. I learned about fashion and style and what's age appropriate, right? Because I think I was in my early 40s at that time. So what do I buy that's still cool and age appropriate? Because I don't want to look like I'm 16 anymore, right? And then that led to me starting a blog where I'm talking about it, which led to making YouTube videos solely to help drive traffic back to the website. But the YouTube videos just sort of took off because no one was on YouTube, at least at that point, talking directly to that mid-40s gentleman going like, dude, you're not dead yet. You've got half your life left in front of you to do whatever you want with. And so I got into the whole self-betterment and self-development and style and grooming. And we talk dating and things like that too on the channel. It's basically men's lifestyle topics for men over 40.
So what first got you guys into wine?
Well, for me, it was when I was going through college. I was a sophomore, junior, freshly 21, little baby me, in the middle of Michigan. My parents don't drink at all, and I realized that I wanted to. I felt like wine was something I should know in the business world, and I knew nothing about it. So I picked up Wine for Dummies over Christmas break and just absolutely fell in love. I picked up every book that I could find at my public library, devoured them, and just became absolutely obsessed, which eventually I leaned into more and more. I eventually did my WSET 2, my 3, and then moved to California, where I eventually moved up to Napa and pursued it full time.
Amazing. What about you, John?
That's awesome. I just liked it. So
Fair.
growing up in Seattle, I spent my entire life in Seattle. I've been in California for just about 10 years, and IPA beer was a big thing in the Northwest. And so, we would go out to these, brew houses and tap rooms and do all the IPA stuff. And then this part of town, northeast of Seattle called Woodinville, started to pop up as this sort of wine tasting area. Eastern Washington, as you know, grapefruit comes out of that region. But there's not at least at that time, there wasn't a lot of the population over there wasn't as big as on the west side, like where Seattle is. So these little tasting rooms would open up, And we started going to these tasting rooms, and I enjoyed it more than I liked the beer. And then right around that time, I moved to California, landed in Temecula, of all places, in wine country, and just sort of dove into wine country and just started learning about all the different wineries and wine in general. And I haven't taken like my SOM or my WSET anything at this point. I keep threatening to do it. I just haven't done it yet. But I would love to. I would love to.
I mean, there's definitely ways to learn about wine outside of it. I feel like I just did them because I'm nerdy and I wanted to be formally nerdy. But I mean, if you're drinking wine all the time, you probably know enough.
Yeah, I know my fair share. It'd be nice to put a little title after it, as for whatever that's worth.
So how do you guys relate fashion and wine?
Do you want me to go? I'll go.
Yeah, go first, John. I've been going first. Your turn.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I think for me, a lot of it started with it gets a little deeper for me. So a lot of it started with self-respect, and also at that time I was married, and it was about respecting the person that I'm with. I go to wine country out here. Not that I'm like judging anyone. That's not what I'm saying. But I go out here to wine country and I see these couples out wine tasting. And the women always look fantastic. They got the hats, they've got the cool shoes and the bags and the dress, the whole thing. They look amazing. But the dudes just don't, they've got to level things up. They're just like wearing flip-flops and baggy cargo shorts. Like they couldn't be bothered. And it's too bad. I see it and it's too bad because, underneath all that, I can see a good looking dude. Like, dude, you can do so much better. And they just don't. And so I go the other way. It's like, I want to respect the person I'm with. I want to respect the environment that I'm in. I feel better when I'm dressed for the occasion. It makes me feel better. And I move through that day just feeling better about myself.
I love that. That's so true. So for me, I related a little bit more directly. I have a series on Instagram called Dress Like Your Wine, where I style outfits specifically tailored to bottles of wine. Sometimes it has to do with the label or the color of the wine, but a lot of times it's more of like the personality of the wine. So I did a Chardonnay, for example, Rombauer Chardonnay, which is lovingly known as cougar juice. And I wore this like short yellow romper. It was like a deep gold color, so it matched the color. I paired it with like a blue clutch that tied back to the label, but also added in like a fun racy element, kind of like the racy acidity in the wine. And I think that so often we tie wine in with other things like art, music, food, but fashion also is this like really interesting palette that we haven't like explored pairing wine with. And sometimes it can make things more approachable. Like everybody can understand a romper, shorts, like and like the personality that goes behind that. And so how do you tie it back into wine to make wine more approachable through terms that people might already be more familiar with?
That's really cool, actually. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's so fun. So Paige, you're up in Napa. John, you're here with me in Temecula. One of the things I want to talk about today is wine tasting. Let's talk a little bit about the culture in Napa versus Temecula. I've actually never been to Napa before, but I do know it's quite similar to, I think, a lot of places in Europe where you are recommended to make a reservation to go wine tasting, where here in Temecula, you can walk in almost any winery at any point of the day when they're open and get a tasting. Paige, can you educate us? What is it like to go wine tasting up in Napa?
Yeah, Napa is definitely much more formal. Most places, I'd say probably about 90% of the places here, you want to have a reservation ahead of time. And more places, especially post-pandemic, are leaning into experience-driven tastings. So you're not just like saddling up to the bar and getting poured wine after wine after wine. You're probably going to be seated at a table. They might pair it with food. They might give you a tour of the property. So it's a much more like intimate, curated experience, which comes with the price tag, unfortunately. But I do think it makes for an overall more experiential, like you get more out of the experience because they're telling you the story behind it.
Yeah, I could
really
totally see
like
that.
Yeah, that's John. I'll let you talk about Temecula, but it's very much the opposite, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can really only think of one winery in town, Botaya, that likes people to have reservations, right? I mean, if you walk in there and you don't have one and there's room, of course you're in. But that's a whole different experience, right? Usually around here, it's right, like Paige said, you just kind of stand against a bar and you just, you're getting poured. Botaya doesn't have a bar like that. It's like you're going to be walked out to your table and you're going to sit, you're going to order, you can do a flight or you can do a glass, bottle, whatever you want. And they also have seated food pairings. They have the barrel room. They also have a blending lab where you can make your own wine, which is super cool. I've done that a few times and that's incredible. If you haven't done it, you should do it. So they are sort of going after that more elevated experience, but I do like the fact of I work from home. And if it's a Wednesday afternoon and my buddy calls me up, it's like, John, what are you doing? I don't know. I'm just working. Are you at a stopping point? Yeah, I can stop. Meet me at so-and-so. And we just go and then we're there. And it's super casual. And I love that about this area.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons because I think when you don't need a reservation and it is more just come and be there, it's more approachable. It's
Is
easy for
Napa
somebody who's
more?
like maybe never done wine tasting to walk up and be like, sure, like what's going on? Let me do it.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes it can be intimidating to make a reservation and try to choose between, I mean, there's 300, 400 wineries here in Napa. It can be overwhelming.
So I was going to ask you, is Napa more condensed like Temecula or is it more spread out like a Paso?
It's more spread out. So it's kind of nice because there's two main roads that run north to south through the valley, so it makes it pretty easy to navigate. But from like the south end of Napa to the north end, it takes about an hour.
Oh, good grief. Wow.
Oh yeah, that's really different.
Yeah. I've not been there. I've been to Sonoma once. But I brought the race car and I was racing at the track there and we had an afternoon off. So we went and hit a few wineries but that was kind of it.
That's fun though. That
Yeah.
raceway is really fun.
Do you guys have any advice for first-time wine tasters?
Yeah. Avoid white. If you're going to wear something, I would avoid white. You don't have to. It's not like avoid white at all costs, but avoid white. And also, it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day. You're going to get tipsy unless you're spitting everything out. And if you're not a big wine drinker, you're going to get tipsy. Have food, eat food, drink water, and just be careful, especially if you're going with a group or your wife, girlfriend, whatever it is, boyfriend, and they have like a day plan. We're going to go here, then we're going to go here, then we're going to do lunch, then we're going to go here. Take it easy. Pace yourself. You're going to get tipsy no matter what. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, my number one tip is don't be afraid to spit or dump. People are not going to be offended. I think
Yeah.
people always worry that tasting room staff or the winemaker is going to be really offended if you spit or don't finish your pour. But honestly, they will be happier that you can taste through the end and actually understand what you're tasting at the end and you're not walking out of there falling over.
Great point. Great point.
Yeah, that's actually that's a good point. So I've noticed that dump buckets are hard to come by here in Temecula. You kind of have to ask for them. They're not, out there in the open. Is it like that in Napa too? Or
No, there's dump buckets are usually at most places. I'll add to that if you're outside, you can water the plants. I've
Okay, there you
watered
go.
plants with my wine.
So do you guys have any do's and don'ts? I know we kind of said a few, but do's and don'ts or any pet peeves when you go wine tasting?
Ooh, also don't wear perfume. That bugs me.
I like that.
If somebody is wearing heavy cologne or heavy perfume, and then it's so much harder to taste or smell what's in the glass, and you're not only affecting your own experience by wearing the like perfume, but also everyone around you. So avoid that on wine tasting days.
That's a good point. I would just say be nice to the servers. Just be nice to people. Enjoy what you're doing. Even if, you couldn't be bothered to be there, just enjoy what you're doing because it's actually really, really fun. Just have a good time.
Along those lines, remember to tip your servers too.
Yes, absolutely.
Hospitality.
Yep.
I like that.
Yep.
I always try to buy a bottle of wine, even if I hate saying this, but even if you do a tasting and you really don't like any of them, I feel like it's still nice to just buy a bottle.
I agree with that at smaller places, like if it's a small family-owned place, but I mean, I own so much wine at this point, I can't possibly buy wine everywhere I go. And so I really think the biggest thing is like tip your server, even if you don't buy something, like take care of them.
Yeah, that's good.
I totally agree.
Do you guys what's your most memorable wine tasting experience?
Well, my current favorite one here in Napa is Gentleman Farmer Wines. It's called The Bungalow, and it's located right downtown Napa. And it's owned by Jeff and Joey, a couple, and they cook for you while you're tasting the wine. So you're like in this space. It feels like their kitchen. It feels very personable. They have all of these artifacts from like their family, from their grandma, from their dad, like all these different things that everything has a story in their tasting room. And it just, they cook for you, they pour the wines, they tell the stories, and by the time you leave, you feel like you just made your new best friend.
I love
Oh, I want
that.
to go.
I
It's
know.
really fun. And the wines are obviously fantastic, and their food is incredible. It's like very kind of like more French style wines, so they go really well with food. Just beautiful across the board.
I love that.
Nice. I think mine is probably going to be an experience in Paso because Temecula is really casual. It just is what it is, which makes it, nice. But I was up in Paso and I made a few reservations, and one was recommended was Law Winery, LAW. And it's right down the hill from Dow, and Dow has this incredible view. So Law has pretty much the same view, just a little bit lower. You can see Dow you can see each other. And the whole experience was we were completely taken care of. We get there, we get a sparkling, he shows us around, we go up the stairs, and this building is super modern. It's wood and concrete, really square architecture. And it feels like you go up the stairs and you're sitting in this massive living room of a mansion, it looks like. There's a fireplace. We're sitting on couches. There's a coffee table. My name's on the table. Welcome to the Galfano party. It was super cool. And the wine was amazing. But it was an experience that was different from anything that I had ever had up until that point. And I think at this point, I want those experiences. I'll pay more if I can have a story and a memory to take away from this experience that I just got myself involved in. And that's what I'm looking for.
I'm with you on that one.
Did I just go off too much on that one?
Okay, if you could go anywhere in the world to do a wine tasting, where are you going and what are you wearing?
I want to go back to Champagne. I went when I was like really early in my wine journey, so I feel like I only like was at the tip of the iceberg of my knowledge. And I would love to go back, experience it again, also with more money now because I'm older, more knowledge, more money. And just, I mean, there's so much history there, and I love bubbles. Oh, and what would I wear? Honestly, that's one where you could wear white. I might wear a cute little white dress.
Your experience, you can do it. You know what you're doing.
Well, and champagne isn't gonna stain. Although I do always, my pro tip also is I always carry wine away in my like in my pockets because I do spill all the time everywhere.
Good idea. Great tip. Great tip. That gets
is a
back
good
to
tip.
the advice for new wine tasters.
Yeah.
I'd go somewhere in Italy. I don't know where. I've never been to Italy before, but I would go to Italy and figure it out. And I don't know what I would wear. I don't know what they
Yeah.
do over there, but depends on if
But
it's summer.
I would
But
recommend going to Chianti Classico. That's the most beautiful wine region I've ever been to.
I
okay.
agree.
Was
I agree.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay.
Stunning rolling hills, great wine, great food.
Mhm.
Love it. Love it. I would love to go. It's bucket list.
Yeah, you really can't beat the food there. I was there 2 years ago and I miss it every day.
I had this white ragu with wild boar when I was there, and me and my boyfriend recreate that recipe honestly probably once a month because it was so good.
Yeah, their food is just unbelievable, and just like you said, like it's so hilly and just every winery has a great view. It's beautiful. You should go, John.
I know. I should go. I need to go. I just need to make it a priority.
Okay, so take a moment to tell everybody where they can find out more about you, follow you, all that stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me at Wine with Paige on Instagram or at www.winewithpaige.com. And if you're planning a trip to Napa, I actually offer trip planning services now. So that's listed on my website. And I also have a free Napa guide that includes all of my favorite places listed out. So you can find that on the website too.
Very cool. Need to get up to Napa then and
Yeah, please do.
get the map. I'm everywhere 40 over fashion, just the number 40 over fashion. Mainly YouTube is my main platform. I post 2 videos a week, sometimes 3, depending on my schedule, but I'm always posting 2 videos a week. Like I said before, just about men's lifestyle related topics. Instagram, a little bit on TikTok, but YouTube's my main platform.
All right. And lastly, our famous In-N-Out question. What are you pairing with In-N-Out?
I forgot to prep for this one, but I have my bottle right here. It's there. It's Cliff Family Beachy. It's a red blend from Napa Valley, and it's just really like beautifully fruit forward, great acidity. It has a screw top, so you can take it with you.
Ooh, perfect.
But yeah, one of my favorites for that for sure.
I thought about this, and the only thing I can think of was doing something completely off the wall, and I would bring bubbles. I'd bring a bottle of dry sparkling, and that's what I would do.
Can't go wrong with bubbles. They go there.
Yeah, doesn't it go with French fries really well?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think that wraps up our formal interview. I did want to ask Paige, do you remember where you went when you came to visit Temecula?
Not off the top of my head, but it's all listed on my website.
Oh, cool. I'll take a look.
I did the blending experience that John was talking about.
Oh, cool.
That was really cool. I mean, and they have really pretty views too. No, we did a lot during that trip. And so it's kind of whirlwind, but I have all my notes listed online.
Oh, cool.
Botaya is a good spot. It's probably my favorite place.
It's
just
one of
because
my favorites.
It's so relaxing. You sit in comfortable chairs. The view is right. I mean, it's right there. People look at places like Altissima or Callaway that they're sitting there. They're up higher, so you can see a little bit more. But there's always like a building or a house or a barn.
Mm-hmm.
Botaya is just flat, and it's just vineyard and trees.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
It's beautiful. They have They have my favorite rosé, I think, in the valley. Their rosé is delicious.
Good. Very nice.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. This was fun. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, Shannon. Well, thanks for bringing that interview to us with John and Paige. I will say from my own perspective, it's great to have a co-host on here that thinks a little different than I do. I never would have thought to do an episode about fashion and wine tasting etiquette, but you did, and you were gung-ho on this, put it all together, and here we are today. We're going to wrap this up by giving our own viewpoints on some wine tasting etiquette and maybe some fashion. Not much fashion from my perspective, but we are joined at Danza del Sol. Our special guest with us today is Heather Rankin, like Rankin the wineries, as we got a pronunciation guide. She has been with Danza del Sol. Will you tell us about you? Well, you don't need me to. I'll shut up.
Hello, world. Hello, podcast listeners. So, yes, Heather Brittany Rankin, but you know me, I just go by HB, letter H, letter B. That is me. So I've been with Danza del Sol for 8 years now. I'm their lead wine educator, their somm, their tour guide, kind of their elevated experience person. And I'm also with Grazing Theory, and I also do her elevated experiences and help do some of her classes.
Now, have you worked in restaurant, any other service capacity?
Yeah, back in the day, I think like many of us going through college, we were bartenders. And before I moved out to Temecula, actually one of the things that I was working at this gastropub, they had about 50 beers on tap. I'm not that big of a beer person anymore, but it was my first exposure of, oh my God, there's more than Coors Light. And it was from all over. There was a time in life I could tell you about all the different Brett and yeast and the fermentation, and this one's a Belgian. The South Bay is kind of more, Hermosa Beach is where I was coming from before. It's kind of more known for its beers in that area. So that hospitality has always been in me, and also love educating others. At the same time, I was a bar method instructor, which is like a yoga, Pilates, hybrid, put the two together, and now you get me in the wine industry.
Well, that's great. So you can really give us a different perspective on this. I think John and Paige and certainly us, well, we're all kind of loosely connected to the industry. We're not with guests all the time and meeting with guests every day like you are. So I thought was to kind of talk about the episode a little bit. John really mentions, being kind to the servers when you go out wine tasting. That'll take you pretty far, won't it?
I have a shirt at home that says kind is cool, which is true. I think you can tell a lot about a person if the way they treat their server. We're humans too. I do understand, especially in this economy, wine is not, for us, I know it's a necessity. I must have it every day. But people spending their money, it's expensive to go wine tasting, to buy a bottle of wine. We appreciate that you are here. So also appreciate what we have for you. It's a two-way thing. I feel like we feel each other's energy. I'm going to pick up what you're putting down. Or maybe if you're coming in like a little grumpy rain cloud, my thing of the hospitality is to turn that frown upside down. And you know what? I have a beautiful libation to help you feel better. Wine country is all about day drinking for the most part. We close between 5 and 6. So how fun is that, right? I also think no one says, you want to go wine tasting? It's like, you want to go wine tasting? Like, it's someone's birthday. It's their anniversary. It's girls' weekend. So I'm here to hopefully keep that energy, keep that vibe going.
Yeah, so to sort of play off that a little bit, it's also to remind people that it's not a club or a party to go out wine tasting either. Like, you can have fun and do all that, but don't be the 5 p.m. drunk person and making a raucous mess of stuff. Definitely be cognizant of how much you've consumed all day and keep the kindness going, right?
Don't be drinking out of the dump bucket.
Don't. Do people try to do that? Has anybody tried to recreate, what is it, Sideways?
Oh, God. It's bizarre how many times people are like, would you give me $10? I'm like, no, I think that's literally where COVID began. Like, do not touch that. That is not, like, when a bottle breaks, it's so sad. But
mutated
it's like,
wine COVID.
Oh, my God. No. And speaking of the dump bucket, so one kind of tips and tricks, I'd say, yes, this is a beverage, but this is something that's going to dehydrate you. Drink water all day long. Have little snacks. Stay on the. Keep it classy, Temecula. No one wants the sloppy person at the end of the day. That's good for all of us. Also, I think a lot of people don't expect because they're thinking, I'm getting little 1 ounce pours. So a lot of times people might pre-party and maybe kind of get a little crossfaded, some other things on there. And that kind of takes away about what the point is here. I think it's one of the things of coming to the wineries. It's a great way for you to try before you buy. So you don't have to, I've never had this before and feel intimidated by it. But at the same time, it's about kind of slowing down, find out about the winery, find out of the wine, find your own wine style. That doesn't mean it has to be stuffy. It can still be super, super fun. Also, it's almost like you're coming into our house. So kind of like play by our rules. We are gonna be the hostess with the mostest, but at the same time, we need you to be a good guest as well.
To kind of go along with that, Shannon, I think you and I have the same pet peeve when it comes to Temecula wine tasting. And you did talk about it in the interview portion.
The lack of dump buckets around is obvious at a few wineries. Sometimes they don't have any of them at all. Also, the temperature of the wine is another pet peeve of mine, because I think if a wine is not served at an ideal temperature for that wine, it's going to taste completely different. And it kind of ruins the experience. Or you could buy something and then take it home and also not serve it at the same temperature as when you tried it, and it's going to taste completely different.
Yeah, to back up a little bit, what's the deal with the buckets?
So,
is there sort of like a command from higher up, do not put the buckets on the tables, hide them from view?
I will say proudly here at Danza del Sol, there's usually 2 to 3 dump buckets at each thing. If you don't really get the people that want to physically take it and spit. If people want their own individual spit cup, and because you'll hear people that are like, I just want to do a taste, and actually I'm going to be spitting for all various reasons. There's no judgment here. We just have our little water station. I'll hand them just a little plastic cup, so if they want to just personally use that as their own little kind of spit bucket. But otherwise,
basically, the answer is don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
And that gets me to the next point is also don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
Like if it's a mispronunciation. We're sitting here, we're having a little bit of Viognier. And I told the story. It took me 20 years to pronounce that correctly. I'm sure that you see people all the time that come in and can't pronounce whatever it is.
100%. And I think that's one of the things that stops people from exploring more wines is they feel embarrassed. They don't know how to pronounce it. So they'll just kind of point, or they'll just pick all the simpler things to say. So a lot of times people, that one, and just speaking of the Viognier, I always kind of almost diffuse that sense of embarrassment and just let them know, like, this is fun. I'm here to help. This is a fun thing. Is I will always show people when they, I'll take the V one, then I'm like, oh my gosh, I know it looks like Wagner, but it's pronounced Viognier. Think of the word neon, but with a V, like Vion, yay, Viognier. And then, oh, okay. And then they're kind of like, all say it like, yeah, I want the yay one. Like, yeah, that's awesome. Or we grow Gewürztraminer, and that is a mouthful. So here, I just say G14. It starts with a G, and there's 14 letters. And people are like, okay. And we all know that around here in the winery. So someone will say, oh, I'll take the G14, and we know exactly what they mean. And that person also, they feel recognized. They don't feel embarrassed. It's like, oh, yes, you know the inside lingo kind of thing.
That was one of my other tips too, is don't be afraid to try new things. Even if you don't know how to pronounce it, don't know what it is, just try it.
And what about white? So John, my first, it's funny because he was the one that mentioned don't wear white. That would have been my first thing. Don't wear white. Whenever I go out to taste wine, I wear black or dark or some colored because I will inevitably worry the whole time that I'm going to spill something on the white shirt or whatever it is. Do you see a lot of that? Have you seen much of that?
So if people could see me, and I'm Italian, my family's originally from Abruzzo, I gesticulate. My hands just dance all over the place. I never wear white because I know I would be wearing a white wine dress, a red wine. So whenever I see people in white, I always say, wow, you are so brave. And even if it isn't you that spills it, someone else could splash it on you or whatever it will be. To each their own. I think amazing, you do you, boo. But for me personally, I would go against wearing the white just because this is wine, and you might end up looking like a wine man at the end of the day. So,
do you have any other wine tasting etiquette tips or wine tasting tips that you can give out to people maybe we haven't talked about?
Yeah, stay hydrated, my friends. For each glass, each sip of wine, have a sip of water. Also, come with an open mind, just as we've been discussing. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We are here to help. In fact, I want all the questions. There's no stupid question. If we don't know it, we're going to search it out. And then that way, the next time someone comes in, I can say, hey, did you know XYZ, blue, 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 blue? Be adventurous, be courteous. Yeah, where we learn by drinking is the great thing about wine. So how fun is that?
I love what you said about don't be afraid to ask questions, because that's also one of my favorite things is like teaching people something new or answering a question for them that they, had been wondering for years and were too scared to ask. And also sometimes somebody will ask a question and I won't know the answer, and then I'll get to learn something too.
Totally. And I, even as someone who, I'm the lead wine editor, I've taken the test. When I go to a different winery, I don't walk in like, I know, I have a million questions because this isn't my winery. I don't know how they do their wine. I want to, and I'm not asking to like trick you. I want to know. I am so curious. And that's the great thing. Every place is different. Every winery is different. And I want to know about what makes this place special? What do they do with their wine? So even as a quote unquote wine professional, I am still always hungry for knowledge. And that's just say, so anyone's level of wine knowledge with that, stay thirsty. And that means also in the brain wise, just be curious.
So HB has a mystery wine for us to taste today. Usually it's us blind tasting somebody else, but she's turned the tables on us.
Bum, 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 bum.
So
Plot twist.
I guess we'll see how good of a blind tasters we really are coming up next. So we'll take a small break and we will be right back. And we are back with a mystery wine that HB has poured for us. The tables are turned on us. No pressure at all, Shannon.
All right, my friends. The competition. May the odds ever be in your favor. All I'll say is this is a red wine. Your turn.
That is not much input here. Let's see. Should we paper, rock, scissors to see who goes first? Or do
Yeah.
you just want to go first?
I'll go first. It looks
All
like
right.
you wrote down a lot more than I did. I won't say my guess until after you go.
Okay.
We can guess
That's
at the
fair.
same time.
That's fair.
I will say this wine is lighter-ish in color, like a bright ruby. So that kind of tells me it's on the newer side. I can still see through my glass. I did get a lot of red fruit on the nose, along with maybe some vanilla and some spice, probably from some oak. And I also got some herbal notes on the end after it opened up a little bit. What about you?
Yeah, my first reaction was that this is a bright, kind of medium, deep, ruby color wine. So not thinking a very light-skinned, like a Grenache or a Pinot Noir. Certainly could be the case, but maybe not. And not thinking a really dark-skinned grape, like a Petite Syrah. That would be a really deep color. I did get a lot of cherry off this. I also got a lot of sandalwood off this, like a sandalwood incense was my first reaction. And that could be that little bit of like barrel spice, that barrel smoke. Certainly that kind of carries through on the palate. It's a really smooth, there's the tannins are pretty what we would call fine grained. That means they're just kind of medium and soft in your mouth. They're not really harsh like a big thick Cabernet or big deep rich Cabernet Sauvignon. The acidity is a little elevated in this wine, hoping that that's just the natural acidity and it hasn't been acidified. I don't think it's been acidified. I think it is just the nature of this particular grape. And there is a tiny bit of volatile acidity that's with this wine, which, in my opinion, is consistent maybe with the varietal and kind of like how Temecula is. It's also a little leafy, like a leafy tomato on the palate. That kind of herbal-ish, kind of herbaceousness is there. And yeah, it's pretty smooth. You do get the sense of that like candy cherry. It's like unmistakably like Temecula in California as a whole. Do you want me to take my guess? I think I pretty much like outlined what grape. Well, can we ask you a question?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe.
Loving everything I'm
Okay.
loving everything.
Is
you're
this
saying.
I guess we didn't. You just said red wine.
Yeah.
Is this a blend or a single varietal? Or like a mostly single varietal?
This is 100% of the single varietal.
I'm going Sangiovese.
That was me too.
Okay, I'm honored that you guys say that. Do you want the big reveal? This is our 2022 Cabernet Franc. And I'm loving that you're like, 2022 in Temecula was one of the hottest harvests on record since 2015. This wine should have been out of balance. This wine should have been 14% alcohol. The fruit should have been really rich and ripe. But Justin Knight, our amazing winemaker, he took some risks. Do I wait? Do I harvest early? All the things. This comes in at 12.7% alcohol. I've been telling people this is a good quote unquote daytime red. Just to say, this is probably the lightest Cab Franc I've ever had. It's very approachable. It's very drinkable. As I said, it's a good daytime. It doesn't hold you down. You guys were saying it. I thought like, they know exactly when you're like, I get this herbaceousness because I do get that little bell peppery finish on it starts coming. The more and more it opens, but I definitely get the cherry, raspberry, this kind of leafiness. But it's very light. Summertime's coming up, so and I love how light it is. I love Cab Franc in general. This is a hot take, but I find it more interesting than Cabernet Sauvignon. I love that bell pepper, that methoxy piercing note to it, but it's just like a little touch of it on the nose, and you kind of almost get that kind of cola, like a little like cherry vanilla cola note to it. But it is definitely different than our previous Cab Francs, and especially with it being the vintage that was associated with it, it really is that. Wait a second. So I love that you're like, it's light and I'm getting acid. And I love Sangiovese. That's one of it. So I love that you were thinking it was that because it is like this lighter, very approachable, food friendly, nice acid, crowd pleaser kind of wine. So check it out, friends. Our Cabernet Franc, while it's available, we're very low production, so get it while you can.
Well, you're welcome for the plug. Yeah, so, no, one of the things I forgot to mention, just because you or I don't get a certain flavor or aroma or profile from a wine, that doesn't mean that you are wrong. So if you go into a tasting room and you see on the sheet that it says strawberry and cherry and whatever else and herbaceous and bell pepper, just because you don't get the bell pepper doesn't make you wrong.
100%. And so I will say, I do all the tasting notes at Danza, and we actually are now new menus. We've actually removed the notes that are on there because sometimes people will see that and they have that, I don't like strawberry. And it's like, well, you might get cherry or raspberry. And then sometimes, or people feel like, I don't get that. I'm doing it wrong. And also we live in a society of, it's like, you might say, I'm getting this delicious pear note. I've never had a pear. What's a pear? And you're like, it's kind of like an apple. Oh, okay, I've had an apple. So then I know. So our whole kind of tasting experience is based on our own experiences. And just like there's more than 10,000 different varietals, there's so many different vegetables and fruits and all these kinds of things. And yeah, just to say, I always say to people, you could say strawberry, I say cherry. We're both saying red fruit. So we're both on the same. We're both picking up something in the red category with it. Also, smell more things, taste more things. We are visual learners and we're afraid of smelling. Someone says, look over there. We look. Someone says, smell this. We're like, why? Like, I don't trust you. Smell more things. That's what makes us better taster. Every person is an amazing taster and has an amazing palate and nose. We just aren't asked to describe things. So tell me about your day. Oh, I saw this girl in a beautiful dress. I saw this sunset, whatever. But if someone says, describe your day in smells. What did you smell today? I don't know. But you're smelling things all day long. We just kind of choose not to. So I am that weirdo. I love smelling things. Like go into the pantry, smell. There's even just being out here. If we wanted to get that kind of zen moment and quiet out, you could start to smell the wildflowers and the gravel and all. That's like truly one of the great things of wine tasting is it's about slowing down and really taking that moment to smell, to really feel all those things instead of just shooting it back. I mean, we've all done it before, but the great thing about wine tasting is slow down and just taking those moments to really experience what is going on in your mouth. So cheers to that, my friends.
Cheers. Thank you so much. So we're just going to wrap up here. Do you have any more thoughts on the wine or any more?
I will just say about this wine, I'm not a fan of Cab Franc for all of the reasons that you are a fan of Cab Franc. And so the fact that I kind of like this and did not pick up the bell pepper, I did get herbal, but not like straight up green bell pepper.
I agree.
Yeah, I never would have thought this was Cab Franc.
And I think just to add, that's one of the beautiful things of blind tasting because it also takes off that idea already. They see something on. I don't like that, and it's like, but wait, just try this. It might not be like the one you've had before. So it's fun to try something because you may. I love that you said Sangiovese, but it might be like, ew, I hate Sangiovese. And one of the biggest compliments is when someone this is a fill in the blank. Oh my gosh, I think I like this now. So yes, yay! Love you, Cavi Frankie.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Pour Temecula and leave us a review. It really helps us keep the conversation flowing. Follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and updates on upcoming guests. Until next time, keep exploring, keep sipping, and cheers.